Welcome to another exciting podcast of Royal Oak Victory Church. We're glad you've joined us. We are a community devoted to God, connected to others, and influencing our world.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to ROVC Church Online. And it's so awesome to have you with us this morning. And as our hosts have already mentioned, regardless of where you might be right now, you might be in your living room, you might be hanging out in your kitchen, you might be at work. In fact, you might be even rolling out of bed as I'm speaking right now. But regardless of where you're at, we're just glad that you're with us today. And today we're going to be talking about something that affects all of us. And so I want you to be listening very closely. It's something we all deal with, especially during this time of lockdown and social distancing. And of course, what I'm talking about is the whole area of mental health, mental and emotional health. And it was just this week I had the opportunity of Zooming in. We did a Zoom meeting with two very well-trained and experienced therapists from our own ROVC family. And we talked about the topic of mental, emotional health. And so we're going to be airing that right now. I'm excited about it. And so I want you to stay in your seats because we're going to be zooming into that interview right now. I'm looking forward to it. Well, I want to welcome the two of you here today, and I'm so glad you've been able to take the time this morning to log in and be with us. I'm really excited about what we're talking about today. Of course, the whole topic is mental health and emotional health. And if there was ever a time when we needed to find out more about that, it's the hour in which we live right now. And so I have lots of questions. I'm going to be shooting at all of you, so get ready, fasten your seatbelts. But before I dive into that, I'm going to introduce both of you. And so the first presenter we have is Corinne Mandin. And Corinne is a registered psychologist, social worker who works at Master's Counseling Service here in Calgary. She's married to a wonderful guy. His name is Terry. They have 3 beautiful children. And believe it or not, they have been attending Royal Oak Victory Church for over 20 years now. And Corinne, presently, she serves on our worship team. And so it's great to have you with us this morning, Corinne. The other presenter we have is Jeremiah LaFollette. And Jeremiah is a registered professional counselor with the Canadian Professional Counselors Association. And Jeremiah is married to a beautiful gal by the name of Joelle. And they have 5 children. And they have been attending our church for over 10 years. And Jeremiah also is presently serving on our worship team. Not only that, his wife Joelle, she is on a part of our staff. And she helps out with our children's ministry. And so it's fantastic to have both of you here today. And, as I said, I'm going to be firing off a lot of questions at you. But before I do, what I'd like to do is kind of set a little bit of a backdrop. And as far as where we are living right now. And so here we are, we're stuck in lockdown for almost 2 months now. Many of us aren't going into work. We're actually working from home. Some of us, of course, we're not working at all. We've lost our job. So that has its own share of stress and anxiety. Of course, on top of that, our kids aren't going to school. We're teaching them at home. And then, of course, when we talk about lockdown, there's so many things that are closed. I mean, restaurants and gyms and movie theaters and rec centers have all been shut down during these last 2 months. Of course, if that wasn't bad enough, layered on top of that is the fear of economic shutdown, and collapse. And then, of course, throw into that the fear of the COVID virus itself. And so that's kind of the backdrop that all of us are living in right now. And sort of with that painted there, I think the first question I want to ask you guys is what kinds of things is this producing in our lives, living in this kind of an atmosphere that I just described? And so, Corinne, maybe you want to just share a little bit first.
Sure. Pardon me, I'm noticing there's so much uncertainty and we just don't know what to expect. So when kids say, when will I be able to go and play on the playground? When can we don't know. And with us, we like to know what to expect and to have a timeline to work toward, right? And so this can feel deeply unsettling for us. And I think that this loss of certainty, loss of connection with people is so distressing to us. So we see a lot of that depression or anxiety or, just wanting, what can I stand on? The things that I relied on before, my work, my school. We don't have those structures in our lives externally right now to keep us focused, I guess, or to anchor our day a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremiah, do you want to speak into that?
Yeah, I definitely would say that we're definitely in a brand new world today, where it's unprecedented. We have worldwide global coverage of a worldwide trauma situation that has occurred within all of our lives, both individually, as families, as businesses. Everyone is involved with this. And it's not just that we hear a record or we have a letter saying, oh, over here in the country, it's really bad. No, we are seeing this everywhere live, online through interviews. And that's completely, even when we compare things like World War II with things like Vietnam, bad circumstances and situations that have happened and created trauma and loss within lives, you'd still be a week or 2 weeks away before you'd actually get the report. No, it's happening now. We find out. We can just watch our prime minister give his daily update, and just watch it. That's unprecedented to what we've seen and how things have transpired, which then leads to other areas of newness that, although it might at first glance seem really cool and futuristic, is creating a bit of fatigue. One example that, I talk about is screen fatigue that happens. A lot of people are getting very tired of, first it was neat to have the Zoom meeting as we're doing right now, but now it's like, okay, that's great. When are we going to actually go back to physical contact meetings? And we don't know what's going to happen with that. It creates a lot of uncertainty. That we'll be talking about as we move along with our discussion today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, another big issue, and, we've been hearing this as we've been calling people in the church and talking to them, of course, is the whole area of anxiety and depression.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe you guys want to speak a little bit into that this morning.
Yeah, I think definitely when we talk about areas such as anxiety, depression, they're all outcomes of all the areas, of no control that we have because of having to socially isolate. Anything that was there before to begin with, if I had issues in marriage, if I had addictions that I was dealing with, all of that has been compressed now to my inner daily world of having to stay at home or maybe having to work from home and having to deal with my family at home, dealing with my kids at home. It's all compressed. So if you had issues now, they're now compressed. And it's almost, the picture I like to use is the pressure cooker, that everything's being suppressed, but like a volcano, if you ever, I don't know if you've ever tried to put, I don't recommend it, but if you ever try to put your hand over a volcano, good luck, right? You can maybe suppress it for a bit, but eventually it's going to eventually blow up and poof, it's going to explode. And so we're dealing with a lot of pressures that are happening, which is only then, the outcome is only going to be increased addictions, increased, domestic violence, increase of all sorts of areas, depression, anxiety that, a lot of people are dealing with. And it might not appear to be, maybe 2 months ago, it wasn't apparent at first, But now we're starting to see that pressure starting to build up. And if not dealt with, we're definitely going to see huge increase, I believe, of issues like depression and anxiety.
Yeah. No.
I also think that the more we're looking online for our information, as you were talking about screen fatigue,
Yeah.
and what you're saying, Jeremiah, about the pre-existing stuff that we walked into this pandemic with, but where are we getting our information? We're getting it online, the news, Justin Trudeau and whatever, but we're also still getting information from Facebook, and we have to be very careful about what we put in.
Yeah.
Because so much of this, as you were saying, we feel such a loss of control, a loss of ability to influence how things are going. And what I find is that the more we're focusing on some of this negative messaging, oh my goodness, then it really starts quite a cascade of negative, helpless, frustrating thoughts and feelings. And the way I sort of approach a lot of the people that I work with, it's like, okay, well, what are you thinking about? What are you focusing on, right? Because that very much influences the feelings that we have. And together that works to influence the way we behave, right, towards ourselves. Are we being kind to ourselves? Are we taking a break when we need it? And also towards other people, to our family, as you were saying, Jeremiah, they are the people we're in isolation with. But also, I'm seeing it when I go out in the community to get groceries. Wow, or walk my dog. I've seen like kind of meltdowns on the pathways. And it really has to do, I think, with people's fear and what they're focusing on. And I think we need to have some ways to kind of shift that sort of spiral a little bit.
No, it's very good. So some of us are dealing, of course, with things we've never had to face before. Of course, Jeremiah, what you said is so true. I mean, some of us had some of these things inside of us, and it's this isolation and stress that's bringing it to the surface. Of course, it wouldn't be complete unless we talked a little bit about family dynamics. Now, we all know the saying, abstinence makes the heart grow fonder. Of course, under lockdown, we've had less of that. And so the family dynamics are very different now. And so maybe you guys could speak into a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Corinne?
You go ahead.
All right. So with me, one of the messages that I've been sharing with families and with clients, especially those with family, and this also applies for individuals as well. So if you're single and you're just alone in your apartment, it's the concept of creating space. Okay, we have to create space. And when we say create space, I don't mean social isolation. I mean more in the sense of creating a time of individual space. I need to have healthy time where I have time of my own, that I'm spending time from a church perspective. I need time to maybe pray, time to listen to some worship music, time to just spend some time in prayer. And then the other side of it is I have to create intentional space with my family. And the way I like to look at this, especially with families, is this is a way where you have to connect with other people. We have to create intentional space for connection. And so out of that, we have to split that into two subgroups, okay, especially if you have a family. The first part is your partner, all right? You have to create space. It's so easy with life to get all muddled up and messed up together, especially with the kids and all the other dramas that are happening within the world, in our own lives, in our families' lives, and in just everyday life. So we have to create that space for our partner, okay? Even if it is just going for a walk with our partner, doing something. Then we have to create intentional space with our family, with our friends, our children, whatever that looks like. And this is why it also applies to the single individual. Out of that, we now create healthy boundaries within this space that creates a normalization within our lives that helps us to be able to deal with these things more. And we're also more connected with ourselves, all right, in order to be more present with our partner and our family and friends. So creating space, super important.
Yeah, no.
So you're really talking, sorry.
No, you go.
You're really talking about building the resilience of the person, right? And then also building resilience of the family. And that is so good. Like, I remember when my kids were little, and there's about 5 years between my oldest and my youngest. And so when the youngest needed to have a nap, my other kids still needed to have quiet time, right? I think, that's not a bad thing. That we can, have permission maybe, or grant ourselves and our family members permission to have a little bit of time, and what can they do there, right? What's your plan when you're having some quiet time? What does that mean, right? Like, well, it means that you're not, knocking to come and play games together or whatever. Just means you need to do your thing for X number of time and whatever. So I think even with little kids, you can still kind of manage that, and also to build, I think, on this idea is that what if we're not okay in the moment, right? If I'm getting really angry and somebody's trying to raise an issue with me, it's not going to work. Right now, I'm assuming that's maybe not just me, but there's an issue of timing, right? And so if I'm what we call flooded, I'm in a stress response, I'm not going to hear you terribly well. So maybe we need to also have permission to take a break and say, you know what, I hear your issue, and that's really good. I find I just need a break. Can we come back and talk about that in a few minutes when I'm calm?
Right. So certainly giving people space to and giving people permission, I think that's very important. Because all of us are going to be experiencing higher levels of frustration, of stress, of worry, and we might not be on our best game. And so love would say, look, let's bear with one another and give each other some space, and we'll be able to navigate through this thing together a little bit better. Now, one question I wanted to ask is, we have been in lockdown in a very different kind of an environment. What are some of the signs of let's say, poor mental or emotional health? I mean, how do I know if I'm experiencing that in my life right now?
That's a great question, because I think we can kind of, it's a bit of a boiled frog thing, in that, the idea of if you put a frog in boiling water, it'll jump out. But if it's just a gradual increase, we tend not to notice that so much. So sometimes people will notice irritability, right? Or just lack of patience, anger, frustration. Sometimes we can just be teary and cry for no reason. We're like, oh, that was weird. Things set us off at times that might not normally, right? Maybe we find that we're not coping so well, and we're using some of those behaviors that, maybe we're drinking more, maybe we're yelling more, maybe I don't know, we're just finding ourselves using behaviors that are not as healthy in order to cope.
Yeah, and so those would be some of the telltale signs right there, a little bit of list. And, maybe some of us listening this morning might want to do a little bit of a checklist on that. I know I'd have to check a few of those myself. So, Jeremiah, do you want to speak into that?
Yeah, I definitely there is no end, right? It's just looking at knowing who you are as an individual, okay? Or maybe allowing another person in your life to be able to speak into your life, going, hey, man, you seem off. What is that going on? Sometimes we're kind of giving the clinical answers right now. It's what we look for, when we're meeting with clients and stuff. But there's also just the practical go with your gut. I mean, if you're telling yourself and thinking to yourself at home right now and you're going, maybe I need to see or talk to someone, then that's just your body. That's just your mind's way of saying you should have done that last month. All right. You got to start doing it now. Okay. So that's just a real practical approach. Other things kind of added on top with what Corinne had also mentioned, I would say, is isolation, especially from any form of healthy connection. Just because we're socially isolated, just because you might not be comfortable with technology, even the phone call, everyone's been used to that for at least 100, 150 years that the telephone's been around. And so just connecting with someone, if you're not doing that, if you're isolating, that is definitely not a healthy sign. I would definitely say any suppression, if you feel something, but you're suppressing it, especially issues like anger. Unresolved anger is another term I like to use. Absolutely. Those are definite signs that if you feel that pressure cooker, as I mentioned earlier, the volcano in you is starting to build up. Hey, how is that going to be released? And if it's being released on your kids, if it's being released on your wife or at the concrete wall, or however you're dealing with your emotions or not dealing with your emotions, it's not a matter of if, but when it comes out in a negative way. Those are definite signs that something's going on. Your body's telling you, hey, I'm hurting. I need help.
Yeah, no, that's very good. We need to be aware of the signs. So, I guess one question I want to ask is okay, here I am, I'm grieving, I'm sad, I'm depressed. What are some practical ways of dealing with that? Other than, running and watching more Netflix series or numbing ourselves,
yeah, absolutely. Great question. Yeah. I think if it's okay, I'm going to jump with this one, and then Corinne can probably build up from what I talk about. I would say one of the biggest things that I've been encouraging everyone to do within this time is to just, very practical. I mean, I can go, we can always talk about different clinical stuff, but what can I do? Tell us, what do we do? And this is going to be absolutely ridiculously simple and yet not simple, because it takes intentionality. And you got to start with a schedule. You got to look, what am I looking forward to in my day? What would I normally have done, even if I'm unemployed, even if I'm at home? What would I normally do? I normally would get up. What time am I getting up? If you're getting up at 10, 11, 12 o'clock, but you were normally up at 6, 7 in the morning, we got to get back into a schedule or a routine that will allow us to create normalcy within our life. Okay. The challenge, of course, with that is that this is where, if we have issues like anxiety, depression, grief, loss, all these terms that we've talked about, it can create an immobility within us that creates us from being mobile and being able to move forward in a healthy, functioning way. But one of the ways we can start is just take, it's kind of a concept I call just get up, take 2 steps forward, and maybe let's go to my book or my calendar or my phone, whatever I do that I would normally schedule with. And let's just write my schedule out. Lunch, dinner, I got to do homework with the kids. I got to make a phone call to my friend tonight. Let's something that I can look at and go, oh, this is something I can look forward to. I'm going to call my buddy tonight. Oh, hey, it's game night tonight. Looking forward to that. Let's intentionally do this. And that will then allow a normalcy within our lives. That's something, by creating a schedule, we can now control. That is now up to me. If I choose to do that, now I'm in control of at least something within my life. And since I'm wired for that, why not also control the ability to connect with other people? Now I'm taking positive steps forward to be able to now deal with what I'm dealing with. And rather than just going, what do I do? What do I do? Now I can take some small steps forward and begin with that.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Corinne, do you want to speak into that?
I do. This is so much of what we do. I could probably talk for days on it.
Yeah.
And this is, I like it because it's the meat and potatoes of what we do, whether there's a pandemic or there isn't. And so I just really want to thank you, Pastor Dave, and our church with the May challenges. Those are fantastic. Physical exercise, it doesn't matter how much. Maya.
Right.
Yes, I saw your pictures on Facebook. That was very good.
Yeah, I'm trying.
And it's so good, right? Because when I'm not feeling well, if I'm feeling really emotional, I'm not okay, one of the first things I need to do is to move my body, kind of clear some of that anxious energy so that I can have a clearer mind and I can evaluate a little bit better just what's going on for me. So for me, that's absolutely vital. I love also the second week challenge. I don't know what the other two are, but gratitude, awesome. Because what that does is it takes our minds off of all the negative, I can't, I'm frustrated, and stuff, and directs my eyes to the things that I'm really thankful for, the people I'm really thankful for. And, you know, for those of us of faith, right, when we are out for a walk and we see something, we're like, wow, you know, I'm so thankful for, you know, how the trees, the buds on the trees, I've been walking a lot. I've been seeing every day how there's more and more green. And I go, oh, you know, it moves me to then worship and thank God. Look, thank you for this, you know, the green, spring, the bird song, whatever that is. And then it's just, you know, an easier leap into worship, and it redirects our eyes away from that negative stuff that frankly pulls me down, into much more hopeful, thankful mindset, right? And when I keep myself down into this negative mindset, what I actually do is I create a stress response in my body. And we know that with a stress response, it shifts the blood flow in our body. We know that, right? And it also shifts the blood flow in our brain. So we prioritize a stress response, a survival reaction, and it keeps me from thinking clearly. The blood actually is less actively moving around the prefrontal cortex, where I have complex reasoning and problem solving and executive function, planning things out and actually following through, right? Yeah. And at the end, I love what Jeremiah is saying, do something, right? Step out, just do something. Doesn't have to be huge, right? At the end of the day, you can look back on your day and go, look at me, I did that. That feels good.
Yeah. No, very good. Like Jeremiah said, some of these things are simple, but we need to be intentional about it.
Absolutely.
And I know how much just physical exercise has helped me during this time. I have a goal, you know, it's a goal I set a while ago before COVID came, but, you know, it has been a blessing to be able to get out and to exercise even in my basement. Has made a huge difference. So now, of course, things change every day, and it seems like whenever you turn on the news, there's new news. One of the new things that we're going to be facing, of course, is things are opening up, and even this week, things are opening up, more things. And so some people are excited about that. They're going, woohoo, you know, finally I can step out and do things I haven't been able to do before. But of course, then there are others who might be a little more hesitant about that. And so I guess I want to ask you guys, what are some things that you can do when it comes to stepping out of lockdown, especially if you're dealing with some levels of fear about doing that?
No, that totally makes sense. First of all, I think it's important that we evaluate how much of it is fear and how much is actually realistic. If you have health concerns, if you have a lung condition, and you are considered a vulnerable person, is that really fear or is that wise, right? So first of all, I think it's important to say, I need to accurately sort of look at my risk, right? And then it is important, sort of like what Jeremiah was saying in terms of taking a step, right? Doing something. If we stay here in lockdown for too long, what can happen is that we get into an anxious mindset and we have isolated, and then avoidance becomes something that makes our anxiety even worse, right? So we have to be careful. It's like always when I'm talking about coping and this kind of thing, it's like some, but not too much, right? like some sleep when we are sad is good, right? Helps us regulate and that kind of thing. Choose our emotions and our activities well, but not too much, right? If you're sleeping 14 hours a day, that's probably too much, and it's going to fuel a depressive cycle, right? Going out some, but not too much. Maybe people want to take their own, like make their own plan, take their own sort of gradual steps, right? And see how they do with something. So I tried something and, oh, this thing really scared me. Okay, take a step back. What do you want to do with that? Try again. Don't stop, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so those little steps are very important. And like you say, we can't stay stuck in anxiety and fear, because that will just create more anxiety and fear. Now, let's say I have a family member or a friend who's struggling with some mental or emotional distress. I mean, what can I do about that? I mean, that can be very tenuous, especially if it's someone really close to me. What's the best way to approach that situation? Corinne?
Okay. Really the first thing is I know you've preached on this before, Pastor Dave, about being quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Okay. A lot of times when people are sharing very deep, big, meaty things, it scares people. Okay. So even when a client says to me that they're feeling suicidal, I have a reaction in my body. It's like, ugh, in my stomach, but I'm aware of it. I pull out my breathing, like Jeremiah says, and I say, okay, can you tell me a little bit more? What's going on for you? What's this like for you? I put my stuff aside just for a moment to truly hear what their experience is, to accept. Interestingly, and I think, Jeremiah, you mentioned that with your neuroscience comment, that when people take the time to ensure that we feel truly heard and understood, clinically, our anxiety levels start coming down.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Our stress response just starts coming down. Okay. So that's always a really nice way to start, is if we have the time and space in the moment to just really hear them and try to understand where they're coming from. That's massive in terms of help. And even research in terms of what makes a therapist effective kind of says it doesn't really matter what their therapeutic model is. It's that connection, their ability to help you truly feel heard and understood.
Yeah, wow. So in some ways, I mean, all of us have the ability, not professionally, but we all have the ability to have a little bit of a therapist in us. Just by doing that. Jeremiah, anything that comes to your mind on that?
Yeah, definitely. With again, going on top of what Corinne said, is definitely two things really that come to my mind right now in this topic. Is the reality is whoever we're talking to right now, it's not like I'm just randomly Facebooking someone, hey, I need to talk to someone. No, those who we are connecting with, those we were talking with on phone or through video, are the people that we already know or have some form of connection with, even if it is just, that person I saw every day that I've worked with for the last 5 years, and just reconnecting with them. Hey, how are things going? Yeah, good. Can't wait to get back to work, And so connection is good. And out of that, there's always what I call that gut. You just sometimes know something's off, something's not right. But this is where most people just stop and go, you know what, I'll wait till the next person. No. This is where we have to be bold and sometimes ask the question, hey, this is really uncomfortable for you, and this might be uncomfortable for you, but are you doing okay? As simple as that. Are you doing okay? Mm-hmm. We have to be bold and ask that question, especially if that something's going on, something doesn't feel right. Just, hey, is everything going okay? Is everything all right? And even if they're like, oh, no, I'm fine, man, that's okay. But just then reiterate and go back and go, hey, I just want you to know I'm here for you. And if you ever do want to chat, just know I'm here for you. What that does is it creates safety within the other person to know that maybe I do need to talk to someone or this person. Let them make that decision. It also creates space for that person. And you yourself are also now being present for that person, whether it is a family member, whether it's a friend, a coworker. So you're just being present for that. Hey, I'm here. And I'm not going to try to fix it. That's for the guys out there watching this, because guys have a tendency to want to fix everything. Just be present, okay? I pretty much just saved half of your premarital counseling right there, if you can catch that, okay? And just be present, okay? Just listen. I have no idea what you're going through, okay? If you're someone who lost a job, you know, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine if you're part of the third phase. They just announced yesterday in Alberta, the third phase will be the middle of June. Oh my gosh, that's 4 months of businesses going, we're having a hard enough time just making it 1 month. Imagine if you're now part of that third phase. So I have no idea what you're going through, but I just want to be present. I want to be with you and be here to support you. If you need to talk, I'm here. Okay. Or I can help direct you to someone who maybe can if you need someone else.
Yeah, fantastic. You know, I can't believe how much time has just soared by here. It's been so good. You know, I do want to end with one more question. And, you know, this is something that I think some of us struggle with. But, you know, if I begin to seek out professional help, so, you know, from someone like yourselves, does that mean that I'm a failure as a Christian? So some people actually believe, well, you know, I don't want to go see a therapist, a psychologist, because that just says that, you know, I don't have enough faith. I'm not living my Christian life the way I should. And so, Corinne, do you want to just share on that a little bit? And then Jeremiah, you can jump in.
Sure.
No, please don't think that, because here's the thing. We all are a very intricate connection of mind, body, spirit, emotion. And when we say you haven't prayed enough, or you need to just, okay, you know, sometimes we aren't always kind to each other. And I really hope that people don't have that message. But often when clients come in, and I work in a Christian counseling practice, I am so blessed to have some of the wonderful counselors that when I'm struggling, I can say, you know, knock on the door, hey, do you got a minute? And they sort of minister to me across so many areas, and it fills me. And as a therapist, when people come to me and then they say, yeah, I'm a Christian and I've got this or that, I'm like, awesome, good, because now we have exponentially more options, more things that we can walk with you in, and there's more resources, I guess, right? I mean, God is Jehovah Rapha. He is our healer. He is Jehovah Shalom, our God of peace. Like, awesome, right? So I would just encourage people to maybe notice those feelings, notice those fears like that might come up, and set it aside just long enough to step out